It's 2025, and as it is 2025, crazy things are going on in the video game industry. Times are happening, things are becoming normalized that, if you had asked me a decade ago, I would have said absolutely impossible. And if you told me as a kid, oh, geez, I mean, it would be laughable to even have these thoughts. And that is because as the industry changes, so do the people making the games, and so do the people running the platforms, at least if you're any platform that isn't Nintendo. You see, Nintendo Switch 2 is going to have this massive direct on April 2nd. It's going to get released later this year. This is according to Nintendo. They said it's coming out this year. We have the hands-on play experience, and certainly we've been hearing from a number of third-party companies about how excited they are for the platform, while really not being able to talk about it because, hello, everyone's under NDA. But what I actually find interesting that's changing the industry is what platform holders are doing. PlayStation is now putting their games on PC, and even certain games go multi-platform. Now, MLB The Show was forced to be multi-platform on Switch and Xbox due to the MLB telling them, hey, you're the only game with the baseball rights. You need to put your game on everything. All right, cool. Then we've seen some other games like Lego Horizons from PlayStation end up going to Nintendo Switch, notably not Xbox. PlayStation's starting to go with a more multi-platform strategy with their quote-unquote exclusives that no longer seem to be that exclusive anymore. Then you have Microsoft, and look, Microsoft is, for starters, a PC company. So nobody really gets too miffed when games are on Xbox and PC because PC is Microsoft's wheelhouse before Xbox even existed. So, okay, fine. People kind of let that go and don't consider it to be as big of a multi-platform strategy. It's just you can play our games on PC or you can play it on our console. But obviously, over the last couple of years, they have decided, hey, we are going to start bringing our games to all the platforms that make sense. That's why we got games like Grounded and Ori and the Blind Forest and others over on Nintendo Switch, and obviously Sea of Thieves and other games over on PlayStation 5, and now even more games in the most recent Xbox Direct announced for PlayStation 5. These two platform holders have gone with a massive multi-platform strategy. Xbox even more hardcore than Sony. Xbox also seemingly releasing more games than Sony is. Then again, as weird as that is to say, because that used to never be the case back in the day. It was always the Halo, Gears, Fable sort of company. They went ahead and bought Activision Blizzard King. They've bought Bethesda. So they sort of bought their way to just having a lot of releases. So I guess that must be working out for them because they're seeing the highest revenue for Xbox ever. That being said, what I want to focus on is what's happening with Switch 2. How does this impact Switch 2? And what are we going to see in future showcases, including this upcoming June? I talked about jokingly that the Nintendo Switch 2 partner showcases are essentially now the Xbox Directs and the Sony State of Plays. And well, there were no Nintendo logos in either one of those showcases. That's not going to be the case moving forward. In fact, thanks to an interview over on Xbox Era's podcast run by a friend of the channel and Special Nick and others, John as well as Jesse and stuff. What we're going to focus in on here is an interview they did with Phil Spencer where he talks about showing Nintendo logos, PlayStation as well, on future game showcases and how this is going to be a normal thing and why they're doing it. I find this just to be awesome. It just gives us here as Nintendo fans more reason to pay attention to these other events from other platform holders because, again, at least for Xbox, they're not going to shy away. Switch 2 logos, I'm just telling you right now, Switch 2 logos will likely be on Xbox-made games this upcoming June. Pretty excited about that. So let's go ahead and dive in. We have this podcast over here. You can see it's right up on YouTube. We'll put a link to it down below. And this is the section here right before it begins. So we'll full screen this bad boy. And you know what? Let's go ahead. I think they're only in HD because it was a live. 1440p it looks like. Let's make sure we're in 1440p quality. And let's go ahead and listen in on what Phil Spencer had to say about putting logos like Nintendo's in future showcases.
Now, when it comes to the Dev Direct itself, you know, fans have gotten used to over the last sort of 18 months of PlayStation announces for games. And you guys didn't shy away from it this time on your own show. Like, typically it's been like, we'll talk about that afterwards. We'll put a press release out or a blog post, but you're just showing the PlayStation logo now. I mean, we've embraced the future here at Xbox Hero. We understand like the bigger picture here, but is this just, hey, this is the Band-Aid off, guys? This is, we're still going to be different decisions, but this is the new era. Get used to the way things are going to be. Like, how would you frame that to the community?
I think it's just being honest and transparent about where the games are showing. And we actually even had this discussion last year for June Showcase. And we couldn't, by the time we kind of made our decision, we couldn't get all of the assets done. And it felt weird to have some of them in and some of them out. But I just want to be transparent with people. If we're shipping on Nintendo Switch, we're going to put that. If we're shipping on PlayStation, if we're on Steam, like people should know when the storefronts where they can get our games. But I want people to be able to experience our Xbox kind of community and our games and everything we have to offer on every screen we can. And obviously not every screen is equal. Like there's certain things we can't do on the other closed platforms that we can do on open platforms. Cloud's different. But games should be the thing that we're focused on. And this strategy that we have allows us to do big games while also supporting our native platform from hardware to the platform and services that we have. And that's going to be our approach. And I know it's not what everybody else is doing, but I just believe games should be the thing that's at the forefront. Maybe it's because of how I've grown up in this industry. I came building games. But I think the games are the things that I see growing in their strength in what we're doing. Yeah. And it's because more people can play. So yeah, I'm just trying to be open and transparent with people.
Yeah, it's funny as well. There was a radio host in the UK called James O'Brien, and he was on his radio show today. And I don't know if you saw the clip going around on Twitter, but he was talking about how he's a PS5 guy, but he's also an old grey beard. And he was like, I want to play Indiana Jones. So he loaded it up on his Samsung TV and played the entire game through cloud.
Yeah.
Now, really? I think that's cool. Mm-hmm. Like, great. Let's do more of that. Like, as an old person now, I feel like if I was a kid, I'd be in hog heaven with Game Pass. Like,
you're not old, dude. Come on.
I look older than Nick, and he's 44.
Yeah, John's actually younger than all of us. Yeah.
Well, first, I just have to call it out because my friends at Machine Games and the quality of indie, like it's a game I'm going through retail builds and taking my time. I'm in Thailand right now but so good. But yeah, like who does it like? It doesn't really benefit people to gatekeep games. And it used to be the fact that the largest thing in our industry were the platforms. The largest thing now are the games. Yeah. And I think that's good things for the games industry. Like that's what the industry is about. Storytellers of all sizes being able to tell their stories through the games that they create and allowing more people to play. I want Xbox to be the platform that enables that. That's why I loved at the beginning of the showcase of the Dev Direct, we could put up all these games are Xbox Play anyway.
Right way, 20. Right?
And it's like they're on cloud. We've obviously done our work with not only is cloud part of the Game Pass portfolio, but you're seeing more games added to the buy your games and be able to stream your games. Allow people to play games. Like that's a good thing, not a bad thing for this industry. And especially in an industry that we all see it. Like it's struggling to find growth. Game costs are growing. So restricting where those games can be played is not helping the games themselves. And I think we should optimize for the best games that we can have in this industry.
It's a damned good answer, I think. It's
So as you see there, Phil Spencer is really all in on this idea of games just being anywhere that people want to play them. And obviously he did directly mention Nintendo and PlayStation obviously in there, and he'll went back and focus it on Game Pass and the play anywhere stuff and the buy your game for your system, download it, then maybe stream it to like a phone or whatever. I even take advantage of that sometimes. The last Madden game I actually played, I streamed over to my PC monitor because I wanted my TV free to watch sports. I had a game on the TV, so I'm like, I don't really want I want the sport to stay on the TV. I don't want to stream it because I have satellite TV, so I'm like, I'd rather take advantage of the more live feed for sports, and then I'll just stream the Xbox over to my computer, and it worked just fine. I have no complaints actually about it. It was really good. So I think that this idea that Xbox is going forward with makes a lot of sense specifically for them. And obviously, we are the beneficiaries of that. The PlayStation fans, the Nintendo fans. A lot of what he's saying, there's no benefit to gatekeeping games. Nintendo clearly disagrees with that. Nintendo sees a massive benefit to their gatekeeping ways of their games and keeping them only on Nintendo platforms, but also Nintendo has the sales success of their hardware that Xbox just doesn't have and has never had. Let's think about this. Nintendo has 150 million people who own a Nintendo Switch, or at least they've sold 150 million Switches. That's the second time they've done 150 million of a unit. And it's the third time they've been over 100 million. You had the Wii at over 100 million, the DS sitting there. Actually, the fourth time, because they count Game Boy and Game Boy Color together. So the way Nintendo's math works, 4 times they've done it. They did it with Game Boy, they did it with Wii, they did it with DS, and now Nintendo Switch, whereas the best-selling Xbox is like the Xbox 360, right around 80 million. Nintendo's flown past that number 4 times, and they've gotten to that number a couple of other times with some of their other hardware, such as the Game Boy Advance hitting 80 million in sales. So I think that, Phil Spencer has this attitude mostly because they've never been able to maintain hardware momentum, so they want to focus on software momentum and putting it everywhere the games are. Plus, they spent $70 billion on Activision Blizzard King. I mean, look, they're going to want to make that money back. And the best way to do that for them is to keep the games that they were already making multi-platform. So it's going to be wild this June when we finally see Nintendo Switch 2 logos appear in third-party things. And it ends up being the Xbox Showcase this June. It ends up being Summer Game Fest. Dude, the Switch 2 logo, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox logos, they're going to be everywhere this summer, making every single event really fun for us to live react to, because we're no longer just talking about third-party games and how cool they look and, hey, I'm going to play that on PC or I'm going to play that on PlayStation, which that might still be the choice for me. It might still be the choice for some of you, but now you'll have that additional choice of probably being able to play a lot of these games on Nintendo Switch 2. So really excited about this. I'm Phil Spencer. I do, for all of his faults, and he's definitely had a number of things he's said over the years that have been a little out there. They've already proven they're willing to do this by putting PS5 logos in their last Xbox Direct. So this isn't like something that we're going to sit back here and be like, oh, Phil Spencer's just yanking our chain here, us Nintendo fans. No, he literally already did this, and probably the only reason Switch 2 logos weren't there, NDAs. It's all NDAs, right? So that being said, folks, we're going to sit back and see what happens. I appreciate the honesty of Phil Spencer and the candidness of his response to that. I appreciate Special Nick, John, and Jesse over on the Xbox Era podcast. I think they did a really good job. And shout out to Microsoft as well, because I actually listened to the full podcast, and later in the podcast, they talk about how if there was like any restrictions with what they could ask Phil and all that. And Microsoft didn't ask them to screen any of their questions except for like the Patreon questions, right? They wanted to know what the fan questions were, but they trusted the host of this show to ask professional level questions and maybe not try to ask things that Phil clearly can't answer. Like if he's like, if you want to go to him directly and be like, hey, how many of your future games are heading to Nintendo Switch 2? Phil's going to give a non-answer. He's not going to be able to tell anything. Kind of like the Capcom guy when they were asked about the Okami stuff and their thoughts and opinions on Switch 2. And he's like, hey, I can't tell you anything. Go talk to Nintendo. That's going to be kind of the response Phil Spencer would give too. They're under NDA. There's no point in asking the question. It's going to be a non-answer. Does it make it fun for us YouTubers to talk about? Sure. But it doesn't actually tell us anything. Whereas this does. What this told us is, pay attention to future Xbox Directs, pay attention to future Xbox showcases, because Nintendo logos, both Switch and in the future Switch 2, are going to be there. So will PlayStation 5, obviously Steam, and all the rest. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on this down below, because again, my younger self, this is like an unbelievable thing I just heard Phil Spencer say, but this is the direction of their company, and Sony seems to be slowly leaning in that direction too. They're not quite to the point of putting everyone's logos in their like events like the recent State of Play, but just wait. I have a feeling their tune's going to change once they start making some pretty good money on these other platforms. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rovajance from Nintendo Prime, and I'll catch each and every one of you guys in the next video.